Hi everyone, welcome back. In this video, I am going to show you how to create a new HTML document with Dreamweaver and how to use it for creating tags. And by adding tags, you can create your your new HTML document. So let's get started. I'm gonna start with create a new. And you probably remember what we did with this like new document creation window here. So create a new, and remember that this is my new workspace because I need to have a property window out. All right. So I hope you remember that we talked about two different tags. So there is a container tag. Container tags tags are like p tag, h tag, and ulol, right, which can contain the content. Okay, so let's start doing it. One of the benefit of doing Dreamweaver is that you don't have to really remember those because Dreamweaver will take care of it. So before we get started creating on the first HTML document with a Dreamweaver, I want you to remember that we as a media production major, we always start with a design view, right? So I want you to remember that we always start with a 1 and looking for the 2. But again, this 2, we always pay attention and see what Dreamweaver does. And time to time, we can start with 2 to the 1. But mainly, it's going to be 1 to 2. So if you're not, make sure that you're not in the live mode because you have to be a design view for now. So what can you do? Well, you can say, I want to say hello to the world, right? So how do you do that? When we do with a bracket, I do remember that I said you have to put it in between opening and closing body tag here. So in between 8 and 9, this is our space, right? But in Dreamweaver, what you can do is click on the design view, and then this is really hard to notice, but I want you to notice here that do you see there is a cursor is blinking? So waiting for our input. So what you can see is like exactly what I said minutes ago, we start with the design view. So I click on canvas view. I see my cursor is there waiting for my input, and with my keyboard I will say welcome to my world. Okay, so I made my first design, which is a text, welcome to my world. And look at here, what design. Didn't I tell you that you have to type in, you have to create over here, but you have to pay attention what Dreamweaver did for you. So Dreamweaver create a welcome to my world in between a opening and closing body tag. Awesome. But there is just some problem. I think it's because Dreamweaver still try to figure out like how it worked with me. So I'm gonna make it bigger. Here's a problem of this text. This text is called naked. Why? Because this welcome to my world, which is my content, is not surrounded by or embedded by any of container tag. It can be H1, it can be H2, H3. So what you can do is you instantly recognize the problem. So you go to the very beginning over here. So this is time that you have to do something about code view. You click on the code view. Many people don't know that you can also edit a code view as well. Click on the code view and say you can H1. opening and instantly close it for you like a bracket because you can forget it. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut it and I'm gonna go to the end of it. Now, before I attach the closing tag, this Dreamweaver is causing a error message because there is an opening tag but there's no closing. That's why, even though not precise, but error is happening in the end of line 9 and then starting of line 10. So it gives a red flag on line number 10. And it's happening because there's no closing tag here. So I'm gonna go to the edit and paste. And now this is good. So I change, like I added a H1 here. Then now look at my code design view. All of a sudden, welcome to my world is now much bigger, bold and black, which is H1 style. So just right now, we start with creating a content in here. And then we saw that what Dreamweaver does it. And then we change a little bit from code view, which is adding H1 tag around the content. And then we saw that the code view change is making, code view change is making a visual change in the code too. I'm just showing you, you can work with design view and see the changes in code view, or you can make a change in code view and you can see the changes in the design view as well. Cool. Now, I'm gonna undo until we have this like naked. So this is where we are. We just click on here and then, no, actually, I'm gonna do this way. So this is where we are, right? Now, your cursor is end of welcome to my world. And what are you gonna do is, this is very confusing part of it. So as you can see, line number 1, right? Your cursor is still here. And what you can do is you can say this. If you keep typing in, as you can see, it is adding on your line. So that's what you don't want to do it. So always what you want to do is, if you want to add something over here, next line, let's say you want to say H3, with H3 say hello, right? How are you going to do it? In design view, one way you can do is you hit the return key and then the cursor is over here. But the problem is it sort of create a like P tags and MBSP codes. So in order to like not creating any unnecessary code in Dreamweaver, what I want to do is, when you're done with the first line, I'm going to go to the end of line 9. So do you see my cursor is here? Because H1 and H1. So opening H1, closing H1. This is done. And then I'm going to hit the return key here. As you can see, the return key in code view, so like return in code view, doesn't create any space at all. This is what we talked about like a few weeks, the last week. So even look at here, I just say, hey, I return like 100, like even 10, 20 or 100 space. It doesn't really make changes in the design view at all. So I will go to the second line and then I will say hello. Right? So my hello is here now. Now, this hello also is naked, and you have to add like H3, like I said. But now, this time, I'm going to show you, instead of using this code view and then do it with a bracket, like adding an opening tag and closing tag, let me show you how you can do it with a Dreamweaver. This is why Dreamweaver is better for us because we don't have to remember, and then you don't have to deal with the code. So what you want to do is you highlight hello in design view first. So remember that you start with the code design view, you highlight what you want, and I want you to pay attention to your property window and this particular format. Okay. So once you highlight your text or visual element, go to the property window and go to the format. Do you see there is a paragraph, heading 1, heading 2, all this and pre-formatted. So these are things that we learned last week. As I said seconds ago, my intention is making this hello as heading 3, H3, which is heading 3. So instead of going to code view here and say putting the H1 like this and H3, right? Instead of doing that, I will do highlight, format, and click on heading 3. Now visually, it is a H3 format, but also look at here. Dreamweaver automatically attach H3 and opening and closing automatically, right? Let's put on another code. So in the end of H1, I'm going to do another line. I'm going to add another tag, say H5, say, what do you want to do? I'm going to go to the next line here. And then what do you want to say? You can say, my name is Michael Lee. So again, this is also naked tag. You can highlight this, go to the format in property window, click on it, and making a heading 5. Lights of heading 5. Okay, so this is how you put a content in your document, and how do you format or make it as a container surrounded. Now there are some other tag we learned. So how to put a paragraph. So I'm gonna keep the return key here, refresh. Now for I will say type in some kind of like text over here as my paragraph, and I'm gonna highlight this and go as paragraph. Now as you can see, this is a paragraph, and this is in paragraph style. Many times in HTML design, text is a content, but also text is a design element. So when you design HTML document, you don't know particularly, like you don't really pay attention that much of like content yet, because that's a later step. So in paragraph, you know that we need a paragraph, but you don't know what to say it yet. So for that, we are going to use a lot of fake paragraph called Ipsum Lorem. So in your browser, if you type in IPSUM space LOREM, there are a lot of Ipsum Lorem generator. So I'm gonna go to the first one. So this is Lorem Ipsum generator. As you can see, Ipsum Lorem is blah blah blah. But again, this doesn't make sense because in the bottom in the here there is a this is actually a generator. And these are all about what it is and explaining how to use it as Lorem Ipsum as a design element. Let's say I want to have a 2 paragraph. So 2 and paragraph. And if you click on generate Lorem Ipsum, what happened? This website come up with a 2 Nice paragraph. Now, be careful. If you try to read this paragraph, that's a mistake. Why? Look at here. These are not actual language. It's illegible. It's just like a random arrangement of the characters and words. But it looks nice. It looks like a paragraph. So what we do is we're just gonna copy this, highlight, copy, and we're gonna go back to Dreamweaver, and we're gonna go to our paragraph content, and what we can do is we can paste. Then we have a nice paragraph over here. Even though there's like a lot of like space taken because of like size of it. Okay, so ends over here. What else do we do? In our previous video, we created a bullet point. So let's do that. I'm gonna go to the end of it. I'm gonna hit the return key. Okay, and then I will say my favorite. My bad. I'm gonna go here. My favorite. No, actually, my bad. So you go to the next line. You have to get out of your P, right? And your cursor is waiting for you here. And I want you to look at your property window. And there is two things. So this is a bullet point. This is a number point. So this is called the unordered list. This is ordered list. So how to use it? I will say click on this list first. Click. And do you see that whenever I click on it, actually created already a UL, opening and closing, and LI in it. And here it is waiting for your input already as a bullet point. So by this point, when you click on it, what you can do is click on this design view and say, hey, red, and hit the return key, blue, hit the return key, and yellow. So you already created three bullet points in here. Do you see this? If you like to go between closing P paragraph and opening UL, you can hit the return key here and say my favorite colors, and hit the return key. You can make it as heading 2. That's too big. Heading 3. Okay, so you can see my favorite color is red, blue, and yellow. And the same thing go to the unwl. Okay, I'm gonna hit the return twice because I want to separate this. By this, it's easier to read. Like for example, over here, you can hit the return key. So you can see like this is the end of a paragraph here, and then there's my H13. Now, what I am going to do is here, I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I am going to go to the number here. So I'm going to click on order the list. The same thing, order the list like structure was created, but also number 1 is waiting for me. So I will say watermelon, peach, or a tomato. I know some people say that the tomato is not fruit, but doesn't really matter. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the end over here, and I will say my favorite fruit. And I'm going to highlight and heading 3. Okay. So this is what we did with brackets. And we just did exactly the same thing with Dreamweaver. Okay, so what I am going to do is I'm going to show you how to save it, because right now this is still exists as Untitled-4 and it doesn't have an extension yet. So be careful. Like from here to here, it took me about like 30 minutes or 40 minutes. Of course, it took longer because I have to explain. But now, if you don't save it, if you exit out of the Dreamweaver, all this document does never exist. In other words, you have to be careful. Time to time, you have to save it. Otherwise, you are going to lose everything you did. So next step is I'm going to show you how to save it. Okay, like I said, this whole document is exists as a memory. So once you're done, I want you to go to the under the file, and then you can save, because you are saving it the first time. So it's gonna ask you, okay, what's the name of it? Different with the bracket, it automatically attaches .html. So it doesn't have to, you don't have to like be careful. But again, since right now everything is highlighted, if you're typing anything, it's gonna be go all together. So you make sure that you highlight only the Untitled-4. I will say test1.html, and I am going to save in my 351. No, actually, I'm going to save it in my HTML desktop. Okay, so remember, you have to do the same deal, test1.html, and click on save. Now it's saved, and as you can see, this was changed to test1.html. All right, so do you remember that how we test our document? In here in Finder, if you go to the Finder, I can locate my test1.html, which is here, test1.html. And what you can do is exactly what we did with the brackets. We can bring this browser and drag it, drop on top of it. Yes, this is my HTML document, right? Let me tell you this. I know it sounds very confusing, but read me through. I want you to test it this way all the time, because this is gonna always work. This is gonna always work, and then whenever you have an issue and then you feel like something's wrong, why it's not showing as it is, then always use this method. This is just straightforward. This is gonna be always work. Now, why am I telling you this? Because in Dreamweaver, there is a way that you can see it as a Dreamweaver, the browser. So problem is, you see sort of like design view is what you like be when you open it in this HTML as in the browser. It looks like this, right? It's like a simulation of how this document will look on browser side, but it's not perfect. So that is why I want you to pay attention to in the bottom right corner of it, the small little icon for the preview. So if you click and keep hitting it, if you click on it, okay, why it's not, let me do it one more time. So it's gonna open up this window. Again, let's do it again. If you click on it, it says preview in the browser, and then it's asking you which browser are you gonna open at. It does HTML with which browser. I will say Chrome, and then it's showing the same thing, right? But be careful, like I said, this is a previewing on something in the memory, but like this is the document we open as test1.html. So this is why I'm telling you straightforward way of it, because this will work. Like even you can open it with the Safari, then Safari will work it. Like this is Safari. 90% of the time, this preview works very well, but sometimes it doesn't. It'll give you a hard time. That's why many of my students were so frustrated. My recommendation is whenever you need a preview, use this preview option. It's gonna open a browser, but sometimes you don't see why it doesn't work, but like this preview doesn't work. Don't worry, just exit out of it and go to the your Finder, locate your file, and actually drag and drop. That's like the best way that you can preview your work. So I would say most of the time use a preview, but sometimes if you really need to make sure, then you can exit out of the Dreamweaver, go to your file in Finder, drag and drop on top of your browser, then it'll give you a precise exact like layout you did with the Dreamweaver. All right, I'm gonna stop over here, and in my next video, I'm going to explain some more stuff you can do with the Dreamweaver. Thank you.